thanks very much for your time.
Pleasure.
How have you found the show?
I found it being, for us as Mott Macdonald, being the first time to this show, and I know it's the first time it's happened here, but we've only been in South Africa for a couple of years, and so for us to platform what we can do as an engineering consultancy, I think it's been a fantastic opportunity for us.
Take me through what Mott Macdonald actually does, because we chatted a couple of days ago, and it sounds really exciting with huge potential. You were mentioning projects up in Africa. You mentioned translate your clients. Just take me through some of that in a little bit more detail.
Okay, so we're a multidisciplinary organisation with almost 15,000 people in 120 countries around the world. We've got 300 people within South Africa and 1,000 people within Africa.
Wow.
We're currently working in 34 countries within Africa, doing projects ranging from transportation, water, all engineering type projects to health and education as well.
You were talking to me about managing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, managing the capital projects.
Yes.
For Translate.
Yes, that's correct.
What does that involve?
Well, it would be better if I actually handed over to Steve Freeman, who's actually our engineering manager and represents us on the Transnet HMG process.
Thank you.
Steve, thanks very much.
Hi, Philippa.
Hi.
Okay, so what does it involve? Well, it involves the upgrade of all of Transnet's freight rails and their port facilities here in South Africa, so that covers pretty much all of the country. If you look at the main corridors, which are coal line corridors, which run from the North Johannesburg down to Richards Bay, ore line corridors, which run from down to Saldanha, from the middle of the country. So, and including Cape Town here, the port facilities here, and places like Nooka and Port Elizabeth.
So these are projects that have already started.
Absolutely, they've run from feasibility, pre-feasibility, through feasibility design, engineering, into construction, and in some places now they're actually running and operating.
Fantastic. Were you in Sia's presentation this morning?
Yes, it was, yeah.
Do you think it gave suppliers a bit more confidence?
I think it gave them a huge amount of confidence, yeah, absolutely.
Long term, how long term do you think these projects are? Is it the 5 years and there's nothing else, or do you think you can expand on other operators within South Africa?
I think this will go on. I think what we're seeing currently is a blip in terms of the current world economic crisis. Clearly it's a significant blip, but it's going to carry on, and I think the drive from Transnet and from Sia is to continue. The delays that we're seeing in some of the projects are only delays, and I think they will carry on into the future.
And your thoughts in general on our industry here in South Africa?
I think there's huge potential here, absolutely. I think, in terms of your natural resources, you've got huge potential. In terms of the workforce here, you've got huge potential. And the infrastructure that's being put in place to enable that to come to fruition, I think is massive. So I think generally you've got huge potential.
What for you has been a key project?
A key project, that's a difficult one. I think for me, I think the work that's been done here in Cape Town, revamping all of the port facilities is massive. It's going to go on for probably another 2 years yet before it's completed, but when it is completed, it will certainly open up Cape Town as a huge gateway for South and Southern Africa. Another key one.
So that's going to create capacity for more import and export?
Absolutely.
And the bigger ships, am I correct?
Bigger ships, more containers, more cars coming in and going out. So huge potential, huge capacity. So it's a great project.
And then you're joined here by another gentleman, John Seed.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Again, you presented this morning. Take me through your presentation.
Well, I presented on public-private partnerships.
It's a big word for our little economy.
3 big words. No, I mean, South Africa has got a dedicated pipeline of PPP projects that it's rolling out. So along with places like Canada, the UK, Western Europe and Australia, it's certainly up there in terms of the PPP projects that are being rolled out. But I mean, really South Africa is only really scratching the surface at the moment. Maybe 6% of government budget revenue is going into these PPP. So I mean, things like projects like How Train is an example of that. Some of the hospitals and school refurbishments and courts and prisons is examples of the PPPs that are going out. but there's definitely capacity for more, and I'm pretty sure that the government here would like to get that figure up to maybe like 12 or 18%, which means that the actual marketplace for these PPPs could double or treble within the next few years.
Well, how would you view a PPP here in South Africa? I mean, our version of a public-private partnership would be to say, come on, Transnet, let's privatize some areas, let's expand in others, let's find a way to deliver on that commitment, which would be a door-to-door strategy. Do you think we will see movement in this market to go that route?
Yeah, I think we're seeing it already. I was fortunate enough to meet with Treasury earlier this week, and they're very, very much committed to it. They've got some big programs coming out. The Chris Harney Hospital in Pretoria, biggest hospital in the world. The redevelopment of that's going to go PPP. 241 schools in Gauteng is going to go PPP. There's interest from Transnet to put out a few packages potentially as PPPs. And also I think it's worth considering that the South African banks have weathered the credit crunch storm better than many of the other banks in the world, and are willing to lend money in this marketplace, which many banks aren't able to do at the moment.
When it comes to rail and harbours, your specific thoughts, what is your pet project?
Well, I mean, I cover across the board. I'm more of a process person who sort of gets involved in making these things happen. I was doing prisons last week, I'm doing rails and harbours this week, and I'm doing hospitals next week.
That's quite a bit.
It is quite, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I think certainly with what we're seeing with the ports, there are some nice packages that could go out. The packages have to be the right size. They can't be too small, otherwise it's too costly to bid for them. They can't be too big because
risk management in this whole process?
Well, we analyse the risks, and in fact the whole process is about risk. Once you've identified the risks, what makes these PPPs provide better value for money is the ability to transfer the risk to the private sector, and then the ability of the private sector to manage that risk better than the public sector can. That's effectively what gives you the good value for money in a PPP deal.
And right now, do you think we have an appetite for a bit of risk?
Well, it's not so much the public sector that's got the appetite, it's the private sector. Appetite perhaps isn't the right way of describing it. It's more, is the private sector willing to take on the risk that the public sector wants to throw in its direction? As I said in my presentation this morning, risk should lie with that party that's best able to manage it. That's the underlying rule, and it stands for any sort of procurement, including PPP.
Now, you're talking about prisons this last week, rail and harbour this week. What does next week bring?
Schools, hospitals, anything. I mean, ICT infrastructure, office accommodation. I mean, I think housing is exciting here. I mean, I think there's definitely a commitment from Treasury to try to do more social housing with PPPs. It's been very successful in other countries, and there's no reason why it shouldn't work here. And it's clear, for me, my first visit to South Africa, that there's a desperate need for social housing here.
And there is. How is the city diversified?
Absolutely.
I mean, when we were talking the other day, I was like, oh, come on. This is a rather large organisation. What can we expect more from Mott Macdonald in the coming year?
Well, I think
Is there anything big happening that you're maybe prepared to break on camera now?
well, we have ventured into space as well, and dealing with telecommunications satellites just recently as well. Actually, from South Africa, in supporting an organisation there.
Are you telling me that I might have a telephone quite soon? I did have one.
One is hoping. We need to operate our business well, and so telecommunications is very important. But I think the element for us is that seeing Africa and the investments that are needed desperately in not only South Africa but Southern Africa itself, certainly in the SADC region, we're very excited about that.
What for you would be a highlight in terms of activities in SADC?
For us, it would be a road and rail corridor that is actually effectively introduced, which allows freight to be transferred around that particular region on an efficient transportation system that actually works logically. And from that, everything else can be built. And so seeing that in place would be the best thing SADC will ever do. And at the moment, they've had these plans for a very long time, but implementing it is taking time. And so one is hoping that it has been a long time, and now it's coming to fruition. And so that's where we're hoping it will be springboarded into then the growth of Southern Africa.
Well, Howard, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much indeed. Thanks for interviewing us.